Serious, if you could learn the honest truth behind any rumor or mystery from the course of human history, what secret would you like to unravel? It's been a while since I read it, but from what I can remember, the pilot most likely deliberately crashed the plane. He likely told his co-pilot to go check on something, then locked the cockpit. When the plane was between the border of two countries and getting passed from one air traffic control tower to another, the pilot did some sort of maneuvering that caused both ATC towers to lose track of the plane. The article goes into more detail, but the plane did blip onto radar or something a few times to indicate it was way off course. I think there is some evidence to indicate certain radar and communication devices were manually turned off. Like I said, I read the article probably 8 months ago, so I might be misremembering things. The theory is the pilot took the plane up high enough to kill everyone on board, depressurizing the cabin or something? And then he just coasted for hours and hours before taking a sharp corkscrew nosedive into the ocean. The Atlantic article has a lot of evidence to back this all up. If it's true, it's incredibly sad. I imagine the pilot just silently staring out over the ocean, watching the sun rise, with hundreds dead bodies in the cabin behind him, and then just quietly pulling the plane down into the sea. When you consider that it had been around for 400 years, and that massive geopolitical changes had occurred, with it suffering greatly from both a massive lack of funding, along with serious brain drain, with both librarians and great minds leaving the area to settle elsewhere, it's not surprising that it slowly deteriorated. It was around longer than the United States, not just as a nation, but even as colonies. Given that timeline, it's amazing it even lasted that long. Estimates put the quantity of info at around 90,000 books worth, which is insane given the period of time and how much work creating and storing scrolls took.
Hey guys, much like you, I love reading people's stories on Ask Reddit. Unfortunately, there's a lot of weird middle school level, just thought experiment type hypotheticals like nice try Baskin Robbins. I don't find this compelling, so that's why I've made it my mission to trawl and crawl through Ask Reddit and find the very best content and put it in your ears. That's why I'm begging you, like and subscribe. If there's anything I can do to help you out, give you the kind of content that you crave to help you get through your workday, let me know in a comment, but please like and subscribe.
Wow, I just read about this and that sounds spot on. The Wikipedia article talks about the possibility of them getting in the boat to avoid danger on the ship, but also suggests it would be illogical to tie your boat to a sinking or burning ship, but if it was just fumes then that would be a different case. I'd like to read the history of the world volumes that were destroyed at the Library of Alexandria. Thank you guys. My dad is the one responsible for this comment because I asked him some form this when I was a kid. He's been my history teacher throughout life, who the Isdal woman really was, what she was doing, how she ended up dead in such a remote valley, in Bergen, Norway. No one has been able to identify her in 50 years. What's especially strange about this case is that she had about 8 different aliases which she used all over Europe, and then was found burned alive in the middle of a Norwegian valley. All eyewitness reports from people who crossed paths with her state that she stood out, and always seemed to be on high alert. The details of the Bronze Age collapse. We only know very generally what happened, read 1177 by Eric Klein for details, but precious little specifics, ESP who did what and why. Droughts, famines, revolts, piracy, population movement, trade collapse etc. are all involved. Mycenae, Minoans, Troy, Hittites, Ugarites etc. Every city from Greece to the Levant was burned down and every civ collapsed. Egypt, Assyria and Babylonia didn't collapse but were severely weakened for centuries. There was a spilled barrel of alcohol in the ship, the lifeboats were missing, and a rope was trailing behind the ship. What happened is that the alcohol started evaporating, making it hard to breathe, so everyone left their stuff and went out on a lifeboat behind the ship to let it air out. Then the rope snapped and the ship went drifting away from the lifeboat. It was an incredible room in St. Petersburg created entirely out of amber. Value was beyond worth, it was simply priceless, nothing like it on Earth. When the Nazis invaded, they looted the amber room, systematically dismantling the entire thing, storing it away, and transporting it towards Germany, like they did with all the other fine art they could get their hands on. In 1998, the family of a German soldier produced a few small decorative pieces from a mosaic in the room, which the Solider supposedly pocketed at the time. Other than those fragments, no evidence of the room has ever been seen again. Oh my gosh, you should read the article The Atlantic did last year, link below. It's very long, but so worth the read. It goes over what we know and what the likely scenarios are for what happened. Nothing has ever scared me so much as reading the theory of how it was done. Warning for anyone who clicks the link, there is some seriously scary description of what likely happened on the flight. If Caligula made his horse consul or if he was just messing with the senators in Rome. On a more serious note, the life of Jesus. And also, if Ptolemy was Alexander's illegitimate half-brother. Because that would mean that Cleopatra would be related to Alexander. The Cleopatra in Egypt around 300 years later. Alexander's full sister was also named Cleopatra.
I turned 36 this year, and I decided to focus on my physical fitness, so I bought a swim club membership. The only problem was, most of the time when I go swimming, I wind up getting an ear infection. So, it turns out that normal earplugs, they kind of irritate your ear canal, they don't really work, they don't keep the water out, but there is an amazing kind of earplug. It's called Mack's Pillow Soft Silicone earplugs that, they feel great, they keep the water out 100%, they're reusable, and they don't irritate your ear canal at all, no issues. If you've ever had a severe ear infection, you don't want to experience that again. It can permanently damage your hearing if you're unlucky. So investing in these earplugs is definitely a good idea. Also, when my baby was crying later this year and I could not get to sleep, I used the same earplugs and they worked great. I was able to sleep right next to a crying baby. So be sure to click my affiliate link and purchase some of these Mack's earplugs today.
The good news is Ghislaine Maxwell, who procured and groomed minors for Epstein and his friends, and was involved in all facets of his disgusting operation, has been arrested. She is expected to rat out all the big names in exchange for a more lenient sentence. What happened to him isn't that mysterious. He almost certainly died of hypoxia and hypothermia on the way down, and his body either fell in the Columbia or deep enough in the forest that nobody happened onto it. What is mysterious is that none of his friends, family, or acquaintances have come forward with his identity. Nobody's employee disappeared one weekend and never came back. Nobody's husband-father walked out, only to show up on a profile sketch on the news a couple days later. No AWOL paratroopers matching the description? You'd think somebody who recognized him would at least write a book to make a quick buck, but no. Who was this guy, and where did he come from? The one thing that fascinates me is how did wandering affect culture? That is, all our modern culture comes from people with borders. They may not be nation states, but pick any direction and you'll either hit a natural obstacle like a mountain, or land controlled by other people. But there was a time when that wasn't true. For a few thousand years, if you didn't like where you were, you could just pack up, walk a few kilometers, and be the first person ever there. How did that affect their mindset? Did they have a god of new places? Did they have people who were specialized in scouting out potential places to move to? It kills me that I will die without knowing the deep dark shit rich and powerful people, governments, and companies have done. We only hear about what they've gotten caught doing, and there has to be so much more. And what about older wealth before there was any insight into this? What did the Rockefellers do abroad on private islands before the Epsteins existed? Also, all the technology that the Gates, Musk, and Bezos crowd get to see deep in the ramp, D departments, TL, DR, the captain waited until his co-pilot left and then dropped the pressure of the plane rapidly so that everyone on board died. He wore a mask to survive, and then floated on out into the ocean carrying his plane load of victims until the plane ran out of fuel. Whoa. Woke up to a load of messages. Thanks, anonymous award giver. Loads of people commented asking why, and the answer was that we don't really know, other than the captain was depressed and a series of similar flights were found on his flight simulator. Is this what really happened? No one knows. It's just the most logical explanation given what we know happened. Also, yes, this and the Germanwings suicidal pilot are why one person is not left alone in the cockpit anymore. Read the article, y'all. It's good. There is actually a theory that it was shipped to my home village and brought underground. We had an ammunition factory which exploded at the end of the war. Everything was underground, so the whole facility was flooded with water and with it also thousands of art pieces and documents. One night before that happened, a train, don't know if it was an armored one or not, arrived and soldiers were ordered to put mysterious boxes underground. The old people in my village still think it was the Amber Room. It's a little disappointing when I've known about the mystery for years, and someone explains it in a way that makes perfect sense to my adult brain. There are a lot of really fucked up industrial accidents out there. For example, the confined spaces horror story. Low oxygen environment, buddy passes out, second guy goes to help, and a third, and before you know it, 3 funerals and a hard lesson learned. Don't take my word for it, but I live in the town where the Anglin brothers were born. Apparently 2 unknown women, speculated to be the brothers cross-dressing, were at their mother's funeral. Now I wasn't alive at the time, but the person who told me was. found some possible proof they did escape. Thanks to technology, a photo of them has been found. Read a few books on the Dyatlov Pass incident. Most likely scenario seems to be a Kármán vortex street. They are super rare, but the conditions in the Dyatlov Pass are perfect for it. It would have created infrasound that would have scared and disoriented the hikers enough to flee the tent. Or it could just be aliens. An intentional depressurization would have been an obvious way on, probably the only way to subdue a potentially unruly cabin in an airplane that was going to remain in flight for hours to come. In the cabin, the effect would have gone unnoticed but for the sudden appearance of the drop-down oxygen masks and perhaps the cabin crew's use of the few portable units of similar design. None of those cabin masks was intended for more than about 15 minutes of use during emergency descents to altitudes below 13,000 feet. They would have been of no value at all cruising at 40,000 feet. The cabin occupants would have become incapacitated within a couple of minutes, lost consciousness, and gently died without any choking or gasping for air. The scene would have been dimly lit by the emergency lights, with the dead belted into their seats, their faces nestled in the worthless oxygen masks dangling on tubes from the ceiling.
I turned 36 this year, and I decided to focus on my physical fitness, so I bought a swim club membership. The only problem was, most of the time when I go swimming, I wind up getting an ear infection. So it turns out that normal earplugs, they kind of irritate your ear canal, they don't really work, they don't keep the water out. But there is an amazing kind of earplug. It's called Mack's Pillow Soft Silicone earplugs that, they feel great, they keep the water out 100%, they're reusable, and they don't irritate your ear canal at all, no issues. If you've ever had a severe ear infection, you don't want to experience that again. It can permanently damage your hearing if you're unlucky. So investing in these earplugs is definitely a good idea. Also, when my baby was crying later this year and I could not get to sleep, I used the same earplugs and they worked great. I was able to sleep right next to a crying baby. So be sure to click my affiliate link and purchase some of these Mack's earplugs today.
That happened to my brother once on a flight from Baltimore to San Francisco. His plane started descending and he knew it was several hours early. When someone asked a flight attendant why they were landing early, she just burst into tears and said the pilot will make an announcement soon. My brother was terrified. The pilot said that there had been an incident in New York and that the FAA had asked their plane to land in Omaha, Nebraska, but that there was nothing wrong with their plane. And as you probably guessed, yes, this was the morning of 9,112,001. After they landed, the pilot also tried explaining what had happened, but also could not get it out through the tears, so he just told everyone to go out to the terminal and see it on the news. My brother watched the Twin Towers collapsing before even fully understanding why. But then seeing a plane flying into the building after just getting off of one made him sick to his stomach. And my brother wasn't the only family member on a flight that day. My mother was returning to Newark from Poland via London after going home for her mother's funeral. He was forced to land in Halifax, Nova Scotia. I fly a lot for work, and one of my biggest fears about it is a pilot deciding to take everyone on the plane with them. I fly to a lot of the same places, so I'm really familiar with the routes and normal deviations due to weather or high traffic, so anytime Therese a weird path on a flight I'm familiar with it freaks me out for a minute. My workplace did a whole first aid training seminar together earlier this year, and the trainer really wanted us to role play situations that would come up in our actual workplace. They had a bunch of the CPR dummies for everyone to share and had us walk into a room one at a time where they were set up to see how we'd respond to individual scenarios so they could provide feedback. I walked into a room with all the dummies laid out on the floor ready for me to go from dummy to dummy, trying to get a reaction and then starting first aid based on what I thought was happening. I pretty much immediately went straight back out into the hallway and pantomimed calling 911. If Therese 8 bodies laying unresponsive on the floor in my workplace with no noise in the hallway before approaching, then Therese likely something seriously wrong with the air and the space. A few. 1. What actually happened to the Somerton man, who he was and what he was actually involved in. 2. What happened at the lost colony of Roanoke? 3. Which version of the Great Filter is actually true? So, I guess Stephen King left a more indelible mark on Roanoke than the actual colonists. Despite speculation, the evidence seems clear to me. Fiction paints a far more interesting picture. GT, what is mysterious is that none of his friends, family, or acquaintances have come forward with his identity. To piggyback off this, there wasn't a missing persons report filed in any nearby state that matched Cooper's description. Gives some possibility that he survived.
Hey guys, do you ever have a problem getting to sleep at night?
Well, I've got the magic pill to cure your insomnia. Much like you, I used to twist and turn all night. But then I discovered that you can take melatonin and valerian root together to get a good night's sleep every single night. I've been taking it every night for years and years. I've been taking valerian and melatonin, and this is my life hack to get a good night's sleep and vivid dreams every night. So be sure to click my affiliate links, and I will give you the gift of a good night's sleep.